Info Factory Track for CSI, RMA Receipts. Factory Track has a couple of RMA Receipts parameters to control the validations, displayed screens and processing options that are permitted as part of the RMA Receipts process. These are defined on the Transaction Set Parameters form for the RMA Receipts transaction name. For this training, we have enabled these parameters in order to show where these fields appear and the validations that occur in the transaction steps. The FDA lots track parameter controls the lot validation logic to restrict the transaction for lots being shipped for the linked customer order line if it exists. To start the RMA Receipts process, from the Factory Track Warehouse Mobility main menu, click on the Ship It icon. This presents the outbound transaction screen where you click on the RMA Receipts icon. To initiate the RMA receipt process, the following steps should be followed. Enter, scan, or click on the search icon to search and select from the warehouse list for the warehouse ID where the receipt is being processed. This can also be defaulted to the user's warehouse based on configuration setting on the user's form. Enter, scan, or search and select the customer ID from which the items are being returned. Enter, scan, or search and select the RMA ID against which the items are being returned. Enter the line ID for the item being returned. Enter, scan, or search and select the item ID for the item being returned. Enter the document number which can be used to tie transactions together. And click on Next to continue. The detailed item line selection screen is only displayed if both the line ID and item ID are left blank before clicking Next. This line item detail selection screen identifies the quantity of items that the RMA has authorized for return as well as the quantity that has already been received. Select the item line and click on Next to continue. When receiving non-lot, non-serial material RMA items, Factory Track displays the processing form. It displays the data received from the previous selection for the RMA ID, the item and description, the warehouse, the required quantity, which is the quantity of this item that is authorized to be returned under this RMA order. Transaction type is defaulted to receive. However, if you need to reverse some or all of the quantity reported as received, select the reverse option from the drop-down. Reverse transactions require the definition of a reason code by Enter, Scan, or Search and Select method. Enter, scan, or search and select the location ID to which the item is to be returned. This field defaults with the rank 1 location defined for the item. Enter the quantity of the item being received. The unit of measure defaults to the unit on the RMA order. If needed, you can enter, scan, or search and select an alternative unit of measure. The to container field defaults to no. However, if the item is to be placed in a container instead of being returned to location, select yes for this field. This then requires an additional form entry to be completed before final processing. Enter, scan, or search and select to specify the container ID. Click on Next to continue. If the Allow User to Edit Receive Costs parameter on the Transaction Set Maintenance form was enabled, an additional form is presented to allow updates before completing the RMA receipt process for this item. After process completion, Factory Track navigates the user back to the RMA Receipts item previous screen to allow for continuation of the process. Selecting a different menu item or clicking back will end the continued processing. To receive lot-controlled RMA items, Factory Track displays the lot processing form. Similar process is followed as the non-lot, non-serial item process, including the specification of containers, the ability to receive or reverse a receipt, and editing of receipt costs if enabled. A lot-controlled RMA receipt, however, requires an additional field be defined. You can enter, scan, or search and select the lot ID associated with the material being processed, and click on Next to continue. To receive serial-controlled RMA items, Factory Track displays the serial processing form. Similar process is followed as the non-lot, non-serial item process, including the specification of containers, the ability to receive or reverse a receipt, and the editing of receipt costs if enabled. Factory Track, however, additionally requires the capture of the serial numbered items for the transaction. After providing the transaction type, location, and quantity for the serial-controlled item to be received on the first two forms and clicking Next, the application displays the form to capture and process the specific serial information for the total quantity as defined by the quantity entered on the previous screen. The scan quantity field is displayed to indicate the quantity of serial numbered items that have been captured in the process so far. The generate serials field defaults to no to allow the user to provide the serial numbers for the returned items. However, FactoryTrack also supports the generation of serials by selecting yes in this field. When yes is selected, the scan quantity is automatically filled with the total quantity. FactoryTrack then provides the user with the option to process and complete the request. When the generate serials field is set to no, enter, scan, search and select the serial numbers for the quantity of items being received. Once the scan quantity equals the total quantity, the processing option is enabled. You click on Process to process the RMA receipt or reversal. You can also click on Show List to show the list of serial numbers captured in the process, or Clear List to start again.